The Sales Perch, a weekly podcast discussing sales styles, techniques, and strategies. Today's episode is called the Ben Franklin Close. Super simple, but super effective. Hey y'all, it's Joe Bird. Welcome to the Sales Perch. Super excited to have you today. We're going to talk about a really simple yet incredibly effective close. It's really logical, but there's some keys in how you do it. It's not just what you're doing, it's how you're doing it that makes it incredibly effective. As always, before we jump into the new one, I want to talk about last week's episode, and I want to see how it worked for you, maybe how it worked for me. So last week we talked about, it wasn't necessarily a close, it was just really kind of a sales technique, if you will, and it was alignment. So aligning yourself with something that's more memorable than you, whether it be a car brand, whether it be a sports team, something along those lines. But basically, you're attaching your branding to something that your customer, client, prospect already knows. And if they can correlate the two, then they're going to remember you with that. So pretty effective. I do it all the time in my social media marketing. Now, it's not necessarily direct sales. What I'm doing with my social media marketing is I'm not advertising. I'm not going out and trying to get clients in my social media. I mean, that's obviously the ultimate goal, but I'm not running ads to new people. What I'm doing is brand awareness. What I'm doing is posting content so that people that already know and like me and love me see me more and get deeper connection to me. So I go to a lot of concerts. One of my favorite pastimes, I'm a musician, so I love going to concerts. And I always post about the concerts. And some bands are completely obscure that most people don't know about, and some bands are pretty decent size that a lot of people know about, especially the people that I'm associated with. Well, I always post about these bands, and I always tag the venues, and I go to pretty cool venues. We like to travel for concerts, and I tag the bands, and I post a video. And what I'm doing with that is I'm aligning myself to music. I'm aligning myself to travel concerts. I'm aligning myself to venues that are bucket list items. I'm aligning myself to bands that people love. And when they think about these genres of music, I'm hoping that they go, I wonder if Joe's here. If they travel to Red Rocks, they travel to the Caverns that we just went to, or whatever it may be, I'm hoping that they go, I remember Joe talking about this. This is awesome, right? So I'm aligning myself to these things that are bigger than me. They're more memorable than me. And it just builds deeper connection to my prospects. I do the same thing with sports. I go to a lot of Capitals games. I post about that all the time. Same type of thing. I send out hockey magnets. Everybody sends out the football magnets and the Orioles magnets and sports and baseball or football and baseball and all that kind of stuff. Effective, great. Put it on your fridge. They see your face every time. It's just, in my opinion, it gets lost in the noise. Like it's still worth doing. Don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be super effective because they're not going to align you to a football team or a baseball team because it's too popular. Everybody's doing it. They probably get 3 or 4 magnets in the mail every season. So I do Capitals magnets. Now, the downside, I'm not going to get as many people. Not as many people are going to stick it on their fridge because they don't follow hockey. But I hope that they still remember when something comes up with hockey, they go, oh, I know Joe loves hockey. But those ones that do love hockey, they're not getting any other hockey magnets. Mine's the one that they're going to stick up. So that's alignment, super effective. I hope it works for you. I'd love to hear how it's worked for you in the last week as you practice this and how it continues to work for you moving on. But for today's episode, I want to focus on an awesome close. So we've talked about a few different closes on this podcast so far. We'll talk about a lot more. This one probably has the coolest name out of any close. It's the Ben Franklin close. Why the Ben Franklin close? Well, Ben Franklin, reportedly, supposedly, whatever you want to say, apparently loved pros and cons list. In fact, for the Revolution, he had pros and cons on pro of leaving England, con of leaving England, pro of being independent, con of being independent. So we could actually say that our freedom is based on a pros and cons list, hence the Ben Franklin close. So what you're doing here is if you're getting an objection from your clients, hey, this is a really big decision, we need to think about it, we need to talk about it. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, Mr. and Mrs. Client, customer, whatever, it's a big decision. I understand that you need to talk about it, discuss on it, sleep on it, whatever it is. But let's go ahead. Let's just start. I find pros and cons lists to be very effective and when I analyze big decisions. So let's just start one. Let's just see where it goes here. Now, the key is what you're doing is you're getting them to tell you their objections. Yes, they need to sleep on it, they need to talk about it, whatever, sure. But there's something that's causing them to not just go, yes, let's do it. Sometimes you can handle it, sometimes you can't. Sometimes they really just need to have an offline combo, and that's fine. And you don't want to push too hard to turn them off at that moment. But what you can do with this close is you can get those objections. You can pull those out, right? So, what you want to do here is you want to get them talking. You want to get them giving you the pros and the cons. You might have to throw a few in to get started, to get them rolling, but you want to actually shut up, sit back, and let them talk. What's really important here, and one of the reasons you want to let them talk, other than you want them to, sell themselves when they list the pros, and then give you their open cons so that you can handle the objections. But what you may think is a pro may not be a pro in their mind. Like if you're pricing something and let's say I don't know, let's use real estate. Let's say, and I'm not going to use specific numbers for antitrust reasons and things like that. But let's say you're negotiating commission. And you may be willing to discount your commission down a little bit for this specific deal. Maybe it's proximity, maybe it's family, maybe it's referral, whatever the reason. You may be willing to do it for a little bit cheaper than you would normally do it for. And in your mind, that is a pro. How could they have a con? You're discounting. Number one, they may not know that you're doing that. And two, they may have talked to somebody else that is an actual discount broker that's offering a way cheaper commission than what you're offering. So that may actually be a con, even though it's a pro in your mind, it may be a con to them. So you need to let them give you the cons so that you can then handle those. So what you want to do, again, Mr. and Ms. Seller, I totally understand this is a big decision for you. I find it effective to do these pros and cons lists. Let's just get one started. Hopefully it helps you in making the decision. Last thing I want is for you to commit to something you're not comfortable with. Let's start with the pros. Give me this solution that I'm providing you, what are those pros? Like, how does this help? And again, you may have to get them started. This solves your problem of X. This solves your problem of Y, right? So you want to get them to list those pros. And that's awesome. The more pros they list, the better off you are. But you want to get those cons. All right. I can take it. Be open with me. What's holding you back? What's the negative here? Maybe it's price. And again, if they throw that out there, just listen. Take it in. You don't want to get argumentative with them. You don't want to handle these at each step because you're going to actually shut them down and they're not going to give you more cons. You just want to write them down for them or make a list or mental list, whatever it is, or have them write it down, however you want to do it. Just write them down. Keep your thoughts to yourself. Con, price, got it. Con, timing, got it. Whatever it might be, and you get your list of cons, and you're gonna weed those out, and you're gonna get those out from them, and then you can handle those, right? Then you can go in and say, well, let's start talking about some of these cons. Let's go a little bit deeper on these topics. So you said price was something that's holding you back. Talk to me more about that. Are you don't want to suggest that they talk to other people. There's all kinds of like subtleties in this language and how you handle it. But maybe they've already told you they met with somebody else. And you say, okay, well, you said price was a con. So let me ask you this direct question. Is it that you found a better deal? You found a cheaper price out there? Or are you just think in general, the solution costs too much? What you're doing there is you're now sussing out, is it you or is it the industry? Okay. We found somebody cheaper. Now you know what to handle. Now you can go in, ask more leading questions to find out, is it a discount broker? Is it limited service? What are they doing differently that you can then sell them on the value of what you offer? Discounts aren't always the best. Cheap is not always the best. You buy something cheap, pick clothing, for example. You buy something from a cheap clothing store, it's probably not going to last as long as something you buy from a more expensive clothing store. Now, it depends on the item. If it's something you're going to wear once or twice, go cheap. But if it's something you're going to put as a staple in your wardrobe, you should 100% go the value way and get the one that's going to last. You don't have to rebuy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to suss those out. You want to get those negatives. You want to reinforce the positives, the pros. And then when you feel like you've got all this sussed out, you want to actually ask the question for the no. So you want to lead them to say, well, is there anything else that would hold you back today? So now that we've talked about the pros and the cons, is there anything else that would hold you back today from making that decision? If they say yes, keep working, keep asking. If they say no, no is a yes. If they say no, there's nothing else holding us back from making a decision today. Well, then the next step is to sign here, right? Push them forward at that point, but you've handled those objections. You've gotten them to tell you their objections without flat out saying that this is what's holding them back, or you're just getting them to list those pros and cons. You get them, you handle them, Ask them if they're ready to move forward. Is there anything else holding you back today? No, let's go. Yes, keep working. Maybe they do need to sleep on it. Maybe that's their dynamic. That's fine. You don't want to push them too hard where they get turned off by that. Let them do that. Follow back up with the pros and cons list. Hey, you guys slept on it for a couple days here. Did you add anything else to your pros, or did you add anything else to your cons? Let's talk about that. You keep the dialogue moving. They put their guard down. They don't feel like they're being sold. They feel like they're being advised. And that's how you control the sales cycle. Thank you again for listening. This has been the Sales Perch and the Ben Franklin Close. Use it out there. Follow me on Instagram, Joseph_S_Bird_Realtor, worst Instagram handle in the world. Right, Coach Don? Follow me. Shoot me a DM. Let me know how it worked for you. Love to hear your stories. Thanks for listening. Joe Bird. Thank you for listening to The Sales Perch by Joe Bird. Having sold over 1,000 houses personally in the last 12 years, in addition to running one of the top real estate teams in the state of Maryland, I am looking forward to imparting my knowledge and wisdom, as well as sitting in the trenches with you to learn alongside you.